Stop using AI like this if you want your film to make money. If you're a filmmaker using AI right now, I want to warn you about something. Used correctly, it can save time, save money, and help you make a better film. But used incorrectly, it can create problems that hurt your film's ability to make money later. My co-founder Mark Klebanoff is a global sales agent. He's sold films to Netflix, Lionsgate, and other distributors around the world. And one thing he's seeing right now is that filmmakers are getting excited about AI without realizing that some of those decisions can cost them opportunities, views, and revenue. So in this video, I'm going to show you the specific mistakes filmmakers are making with AI, why those mistakes can cost you money later, and how to avoid them, and where AI can actually be an incredibly valuable tool in your filmmaking process. If you're planning to make money with your film, this is something you need to understand before production begins. As filmmakers, our goal isn't just to finish a movie. The goal is to finish a movie that can actually be sold and distributed to get the most amount of views possible and make money. And some AI decisions can make that much harder than we realize. First, let's clear up a common misconception. This isn't an anti-AI video. There are absolutely ways to use AI that we think are completely reasonable and helpful, and we'll get into those in just a minute. So the problem that we have with AI is that most filmmakers aren't separating the safe uses from the risky ones. AI is already being used throughout the industry. There are AI-assisted tools inside cameras, visual effects artists are using AI, graphic artists are using it, post-production companies are integrating AI into their workflows. Virtual production environments use AI-assisted systems. Camera tracking systems use AI. And there are companies using AI to help localize films into foreign languages. So the issue isn't never use AI. That's not realistic. The real question is, are you using AI as a tool to support filmmaking, or are you using AI to generate assets that you may not actually have the legal right to use? Because that's where things start getting dangerous. And the reason it's dangerous is surprisingly simple: ownership. That's it, ownership. Every film needs distribution, and if you're not aware, distribution hinges on ownership. And if one of your goals for the film is to reach as many people as possible, this is a crucial thing to keep in mind. Because the biggest success stories most filmmakers point to are not making money through self-distribution. They're getting traditional distribution. They're working with sales agents. They're getting their films onto platforms internationally through established distribution channels, which means they eventually have to satisfy the same requirements distributors ask of every film they acquire. And right now, one of the questions becoming more common is, what AI-generated elements were used in this movie? Because distributors are trying to protect themselves. And if you can't clearly prove ownership of what's in your film, that can create problems later. When you're working with a sales agent or distributor to license your film domestically or internationally, eventually someone's going to ask a very important question. Can you prove you own everything in this movie? Every image, every sound, every visual effect, every voice, every piece of footage, every asset. Can you prove where it came from? Because if you can't, you have a problem. And this matters long before the film is finished, because every major decision you make before production should be helping position the film for the best possible deal later. That's how professional producers think. They're not just asking, can we do this? They're asking, will this create problems when we're trying to sell it? Everyone's talking about the success right now of films like Obsession and Backrooms. They were independent creators who built audiences, they created momentum, and they've gotten massive attention. Their films have exploded. Why? We don't quite know exactly why these films hit big and others didn't. But they didn't explode because of self-distribution. They exploded because they went through traditional distribution, which means they had to satisfy the same requirements distributors ask of every film they acquire. And that's why you need to know this, because right now, many distributors don't want to touch AI-generated assets unless you can prove ownership, which means this isn't a problem you can wait to solve until after the movie is finished. You need to think about it now. Before production, before post, before your release strategy depends on a distributor saying yes. Because getting blindsided at the finish line is one of the most expensive mistakes a filmmaker can make. The problem is that a lot of AI systems are pulling information from the internet at large. You type in a prompt, the system generates an image or voice or piece of music or a visual element. But most filmmakers have no idea where those elements actually came from. They don't know what data was used, what assets influenced the output, what rights exist behind the scenes. And if you don't know where something came from, How do you prove you own it? That's the issue. Not how good it is or how much it enhances the vision of the film, it's whether you can legally use it. And it's so easy to underestimate the risk. Most people are looking at AI and thinking, this saves me money. And maybe it does. Maybe it saves you $2,000, maybe it saves you $5,000, or even more. It's understandable why filmmakers are excited about this. You know, making a film is expensive and there are so many costs that spring up that you didn't even plan for. As good producers, we're constantly looking for ways to stretch a budget further and get more production value on the screen, right? It's not a bad instinct, but the problem is when the short-term savings create a much bigger problem later. And what happens if somebody later tells you that the asset can't stay in the movie? Because replacing an AI generated asset isn't always as simple as swapping out a photo. What if it's integrated throughout the whole film? What if it's part of the VFX or part of your background or part of the music? What if it's in multiple scenes? Now you're not just replacing one thing, you're reopening a finished movie. Think about what that means. Your edit's finished, your color is finished, your sound mix is finished, your deliverables are finished. The movie is done. Then somebody says, you need to remove this. Now what? You may need new assets, new VFX work, a new edit pass, sound pass, color pass, a new master. And depending on how integrated that element is, the cost can add up very quickly. And this isn't a hypothetical issue, this is showing up already. My co-founder Mark reports that many distributors include language in their contracts specifically addressing AI-generated imagery. When a distributor asks about AI-generated elements in your film, they will require you to prove ownership. And if they won't move forward until the issue is fixed, you may find yourself trying to raise tens of thousands of dollars after the film is already complete. Or even worse, it delays or destroys your release. Now let's make this real. Your film may have cost $200K, $600K, or $1.5 million. Maybe you already went over budget to finish it. Maybe you exhausted your crowdfunding audience. Maybe you called in every favor you had. Like your investors are tapped out, your friends and family, they already contributed. Then somebody tells you you need to remove integral pieces of content, which could be another 20K, 50K, 100K, or more depending on the scope. And the worst thought is you thought you were done. You finally got the movie across the finish line. And by now you're probably ready to move on to the next project. Now you're being told you have to reopen the film, not to improve the movie, but to fix a problem you didn't even know existed. And where's that money gonna come from? Because most of us don't have an extra 50K sitting around, and investors aren't too excited about putting additional money into a film that's already supposed to be finished, right? So that's where the danger is. The danger isn't that AI costs money. The danger is that AI can create costs you never planned for after the movie is already finished. And in some cases, it can jeopardize the very distribution deal you were counting on to make your money back. Because if a distributor won't move forward until the issue is fixed, you may find yourself trying to raise tens of thousands of additional dollars after the film is already complete. And that's a very difficult position to be in. And depending on how you structured your film, it can delay a film long enough to devalue the deal, which could mean even more lost money. That's why this isn't a decision you can afford to ignore during development. You need to think about it before production, or as soon as possible if you've already wrapped. Because as a producer, your job is to make decisions that maximize the chances of the film's success. And at the finish line is one of the most expensive moments possible to discover a problem. And this is also why career producers evaluate decisions differently than creative. A creative may ask, can we do this? A career producer asks, what happens if this goes wrong? That mindset can save enormous amounts of money and maximize the film's success. And it's exactly why we created the complete indie film producer system. Because most filmmakers are taught how to make a movie, they're rarely taught how to evaluate decisions with an eye towards making a profitable film. Professional producers think differently. They're constantly asking, what do I need to do in development to get the best deal possible? Can this survive legal review? Can this survive distribution review? Can we actually deliver this movie once it's finished? The best producers aren't just trying to get a film made, they're trying to position it for the greatest chance of success after it's made. They're thinking about funding, distribution, revenue, marketability, and whether the decisions they're making today will help or hurt the project later. And that's exactly what we teach. So if you want to understand how successful producers evaluate projects before money gets spent and how to position your film for funding, distribution, and profitability before production begins, click the first link in the description so you can see what it looks like to work with us. Now, with all that said, there are great ways to use AI safely. AI can be incredibly useful for proofs of concept, for pitch decks, pre-visualization, concept art, workflow support, brainstorming, production, planning. There are also companies emerging that provide AI-generated assets with documented ownership and chain of title, which is fantastic. Because the issue has never been AI itself. The issue is whether you can prove ownership. If you can prove ownership, you can use a tool. If you can't, you're taking a risk. And the industry is rapidly moving towards solutions that address this problem, but we're not there yet. But so many industries are already finding ways to integrate it. So the future is not AI versus filmmaking. The future is filmmakers learning how to use AI responsibly, not just looking for the biggest shortcut, but making smart decisions before those decisions become expensive. The ones who will see the biggest benefit will be by using AI to strengthen the filmmaking process while making sure their legal ducks are in a row. So use AI, just use it strategically, because the goal isn't to save a few dollars today if it creates a problem that costs you far more tomorrow. The goal is to build a film that can actually get sold, distributed, and make money so the most amount of people can see the film, and so you get to make your next film. If this video was helpful, take a second to like the video and subscribe. On this channel, we focus on the practical side of funding, distribution, producing, and packaging films, so you can stop guessing and start making smarter decisions. And if you're currently using AI in your filmmaking process, I'd love to hear how you're using it. Drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.